dudes, how are you doing? I hope you're having a damn good day. Welcome back to the channel, and today we will be discussing the 4-2-3-1 formation that Leeds United play under Daniel Farke. Of course, former Norwich City manager, got them promoted and relegated quite a few times, and of course I'm pretty damn sure that Leeds fans will want him to try and get them promoted. Maybe not relegated, but definitely promoted. So in this video, we will be going over the tactics, the formation, of course, some players that can fit into certain areas a bit more than others. And we're going to go over all that. So stay tuned for that. If you can, do me the biggest favor, hit the like button, or the down, you know, I don't, anyway, or the subscribe button. There we go. That would be absolutely fantastic if you could do that. And of course, we are going to hop on into it, starting off with going through the team. Of course, we've got big man Bamford up front. We've got Ruta, who I really do rate. We've got Somerville, another great player. We've got Archie Gray. We've got Ampadu. We've got Sinistera. We've got Byram, Stroik, Cooper, Ayling, Millier, terrible goalkeeper in my opinion, just terrible. Gelhardt, another great player. Daniel frickin' James. We've got Greenwood, Dallas, Darlow. He's not too bad. I've just also headbutted my microphone. God damn, this microphone is in a new position, as you guys can tell. And I'm not used to it just yet. But anyway, we've got Roden on the bench, as well as Firpo, and then Costa, Cresswell, another great player, Shackleton, Drama, I think that's how you say it, Prevada, Joseph, Perkins, Giabi, and then a few others I don't care about. And of course, Nonto, apparently, he has submitted a formal request. He is striking and everything, so he is not a fan favourite at the moment. And I think he's probably going to go to Everton, which would be a great signing for them, to be honest. Like, he was really good last season in the Prem. As you can see right here, we've got the formation. I haven't changed anything. It's just a normal 4-2-3-1 wide. Of course, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 1 goalkeeper, of course. 2 DMs, 1 cam, 1 left midfielder, 1 right midfielder, and then, of course, 1 striker. So, just going through some of the tactics, of course, what I did see in the gameplay that I witnessed with my own 2 eyes was that there was a bit of a press after loss of possession. Of course, they did tend to press quite high, quite abruptly. Of course, the game against West Bromwich Albion, where they did draw 1-1, they were pressing the life out of West Brom, and West Brom were really struggling to just maintain the ball and just, you know, keep it out of the possession of the likes of Leeds. And that's what I think, more or less, going throughout the course of this season, they'll look and try to implore on the opposition's backline, of course, but they were very, very good. Of course, it was Gelhardt and Ruta that were at the, you know, the forefront of the pressing and everything, so they were very good with that. And I was very impressed with Daniel James. Of course, we all know he is, what is that the character's name from Looney Tunes, but he is that dude that's meep meep. Anyway, he's Roadrunner. That's Roadrunner man. And his pressing was fantastic as well. So I've gone with a width of around 45. You do want to try and stretch that midfield, more or less go man to man, to try and, you know, just more or less overpower your opposition. And again, going back to the West Brom game, they were very good at just, you know, losing the ball and then pressing immediately, winning it back, whether West Brom were hoofing it out and trying to, you know, just get a 5-second breather, or whether they were trying to kick it long to try and spring a counter-attack of their own. Whether it was the defense or the midfield, they were really, like, doing such a good job. I mean, Ampadu damn near was fantastic. I was so impressed. And also, of course, Archie Gray, he was also really good getting forward in that game. And then speaking of getting forward, the depth of the back line, of course, and just the whole team as a unit, they're a lot higher up the field. It is a slightly higher mid-block than normal. You can probably push it up if you want. Maybe if you are playing a West Brom in the Championship in a career mode series, of course, you can push it up a bit higher depending on the team that you're versing, or you can maybe drop it down a bit if you do get promoted to the Premier League and you want to be a bit more cautious about it. But more or less, this is what I kind of expected to put into FIFA, around a 70-75, because that was a nice, good high mid block that they were playing. I need to say a high low block, a high mid block that they were playing. It did also protect the likes of your 2 starting centre backs on the day. It was Roden and it was Roden and Stroik. Oh, damn. But basically, yeah, they were looking to try and protect their back line, and more or less Farke will try and do this. And of course, he is a very pragmatic manager. Of course, we did see that he would try and set up a low block when he was on the Prem with Norwich, and he knew that he didn't really stand a chance. So very smart manager, I should say. So I do expect him to more or less tinker with that a bit more. And if you are using these sort of tactics, also look to try and tinker with it. But from what I saw in the gameplay, and of course the highlights that I did watch, it was a very, very nice high line. As for the offense, of course, we did. I kind of wanted it to be on fast-paced build-up because they were bombing on left, right, and center against the likes of West Brom. But at the same time, they can also look to go a bit long. They can also look to try and slow possession down. So more importantly, it is set to a possession-based team, right? They are going to look to try and win and strong arm the opposition over it with the ball. They're going to try and compact them in their own half and try just spray passes around, and also look for crosses. Of course, you're going to have a very widespread midfield. You're going to have a very widespread set of wingers who are going to look to cross the ball. And I think it was Dan James with a great cross into the back post for Luke Ayling, who ended up being in the box and scored the header, of course, to equalise. But more or less, you do want to try and spread the midfield quite wide for when you do have possession, so that way your midfielder has a bit more time on the ball. Of course, that is the most important key feature to being a midfielder. Having time and patience with the ball is the most important factor. And especially in FIFA, you do want to try and give yourself as much space as possible in order to have the little tactical runs, running behinds, hit those passes, of course. You don't want to ever feel rushed in FIFA. And more or less, this is what I envisioned Leeds United more or less implementing throughout the course of the West Bromwich Albion game. And then, of course, players in the box. I did mention that the likes of Luke Ayling was making great runs into the back post. And you can set it slightly higher to a 9, but you do tend to overcommit players. So I've dropped it down to an 8, of course. And I think that more or less gets the best out of the attacking players that are in play. And, of course, your potential bombing on fullback as well. And, of course, Leeds United have got some decent fullbacks. I mean, Firpo is not great defensively, but going forward, I think he's fantastic. Of course, Luke Ayling, not the best, but you know what, he's a make-do kind of player. But then you've got great young players like Drama. No, I'm not saying Dharma, it's Drama. And so on. You've got good young fullbacks that can get forward. So you do want to try and utilize their offensive abilities as well, whether it's crossing the ball or potentially getting into the back post to try and score a back post header or a goal or something like that. So you do want to get those players in those positions to succeed. But more importantly, Leeds United will look to try and cut the ball back across the baseline. So you will look to try and run baseline with either your winger or your fullback and look to try and cut it back. And of course, if there's more bodies in the box, more opportunities to score the goals. And as per always, corners and free kicks is set to 4. So, starting off with Melié's set of instructions and his positioning, of course, he is set to become a sweeper keeper and also come for crosses. Of course, he is a quite tall human being. He's very tall, in fact. Claims crosses in there. Not the best with his feet, but he can do it. I mean, when he was really good for Leeds, I think it was 2 seasons ago, before they got relegated, obviously. And that one good season that they had with Marcelo Bielsa, where they finished 10th or something. Melié was fantastic. And I think he could get back to that, and at the moment it's a bit of a confidence-stricken run on barren form and everything. But yeah, I think under Farke he will look to try and have a bit of a progressive goalkeeper. So I did see a few times he would have the ball at his feet and wait for potential movements in the further up the field, of course, and he would try and hit those long balls to either the likes of Dan James or I think it was Jamie Shackleton playing on the right-hand side for the game. And of course, try and hit it into the strike partnership of Ruta and I think it was Gelhardt on the day. So he does have that ability to hit the long balls. And of course, if you are playing a very high line, which 75, even though I've described it as a mid-high block, it's still a very high line. And more times than not, Strauch and Cooper can get caught for possession, or pace, I should say. So you do want a goalkeeper that's a bit more proactive. And I think Melié does fit the role, I should say. And speaking of Strauch and Cooper, they are set to their base set of instructions. And one thing I did notice throughout the game, which is why I have gone with these instructions for the fullbacks, it was more times than not a flat back four. There was none of the one tucks in, one bombs on forward, creating that back three. It was nothing like that. I did pay special attention to it because I was like, Michael Carrick's been doing it. And if you haven't seen that video, click on that. I'll link it at the end of this. But, Michael Carrick's been doing it in the championship. So maybe, Daniel Farke might be, but at the same time, he's not really. So as for Luke Ayling as the right back, of course, I have set him to join the attack and of course have a bit of a mixed attack. So he's not going to just look to overlap or invert all the time. He will look to, mix up a bit, create a bit more dynamism in the game. And that's more or less what you do want from your right-sided right back, right-sided fullback. And as for Byram, who I know this guy, a few seasons ago, he had a wicked cross on him. So, you know what? Good signing for Leeds United. And if they can get him into those aggressive positions where he can look to cross the ball and hit his targets, I think that he would be a really good fit. And he will come in as a bit of a veteran, a bit more leadership. I do like this signing. It's a very underrated signing, in my opinion, of course. Of course, this was when he played for West Ham. So I don't know. I haven't really been following his career, down to the wire, but I do like him a lot from what I remember of him, at least. But anyway, as for Sam Byram, it would be kind of embarrassing if I don't know his first name, but I think it's Sam. I don't know. He is set to join the attack in an overlap, so he will be looking to go on the outside of Sinistera or Dan James or whoever and look to try and create space. And of course, they will look to do the same for him by cutting inside and just drawing certain players out of positions of your opposition. Moving further up the field, though, Ampadu. Now, I was a bit concerned because Ampadu and Gray, they were interchanging positions all the time. So I went with Ampadu being on the left. He could be on the right. But more or less, the instructions are what are the most important things going forward. So as for Ampadu, I have him set to a balanced defense, stay back while attacking, normal interceptions, cover the center. That's the most important thing. In possession, it would more or less shift to a 4-3-3 with Ampadu sitting at the base, Archie Gray getting forward, joining up with the likes of Ruta, who would also try and bomb on just a little bit further up the field. So it was very much Ampadu collecting the ball off the back four and then driving it forward. And then also, one thing you can't do is, especially in a double pivot, what managers like to do is have a bit of a mix. So one will try and bomb forward, the other one will stay back. And of course, I did see that Archie Gray did, hang back a bit when Ampadu did take the ball higher up the field and try and drive it on into the opposition's box and stuff. But of course, in FIFA 23, you can't replicate or recreate that at all. So you just have to choose one. And, maybe if you're playing in career mode, you can alternate the two. So for me, I think Ampadu is a bit more of a DM. And Archie Gray is a bit more of a box-to-box. So therefore, I've gone with Archie Gray being the box-to-box more times than not, and Ampadu sitting and protecting that back line. But speaking of Archie Gray, of course, I have got him set to a balanced defense. Get forward, of course. Like I said, you want him to try and bomb on a bit higher up the field, link the defense and the attack together. But more importantly, you want him to cover wing and, of course, be the deep-lying playmaker. Now, this is a kid that is highly, highly thought of at Leeds United, and I think he's got a very bright future behind him, of course. So it will be very interesting to see how he does fare. And I was very impressed with him, to say the very least. So I can understand why people have hold him in such a high regard, because he's really, really talented on the ball. The ability just to find little bits of space, operate in that little area. You couldn't press him if he was an ironing board, honestly. Fantastic player. Fan-damn-tastic. And those are his set of instructions right there. And then as for Ruta, I've got him set to stay forward, get into the box, of course, free roam, and then, of course, normal interceptions. Now, what I did notice was either Gelhardt would drop deeper and Ruta would play as the striker, and they would have a bit more of a free interchanging role, which was quite nice. But, of course, Ruta did start in behind the likes of Gelhardt. So it does affect the striker a bit more, but you do want to see him, running past the striker and the striker dropping a bit deeper from time to time. Also creating a bit of uncertainty for the back line going forward. And of course, that's why I've gone with the free roam and of course get into the box. And of course, stay forward, because that will more or less look to try and replicate that role of him bombing on past your striker. Going a bit right now, Somerville, of course, fantastic player. One player that I was very shocked hasn't, got a move yet, because he's fantastic. But they gave him the number 10 shirt. So you know what? Good for him. Anyway, he's set to come back on defense, balanced width, of course, getting behind, and of course get into the box. Now, the main reason why I've gone with the balance width, you can say hug the touchline and, stick there and try and create 1v1s. It's more or less coinciding with the likes of Luke Ayling. So if he wants to cut inside with Luke Ayling overlapping, it makes the most sense. It's a bit of a dynamic approach. And I like that for the likes of Somerville on the right-hand side. And of course, basically the rest of the instructions are just a out-and-out winger type set of instructions that I have given him. And that's more or less what I did see from Jamie Shackleton. He did, drift inside a bit more, but that's why I've added the dynamism of the chance creation being set to a balanced width. So he will look to come inside sometimes. He will look to try and hug the touchline on others. But so on the other side of the field, more or less the same set of instructions. We've got Sinistera set to come back on defense, balanced with getting behind, and of course get into the box. Now, basically, Dan James in the game, he would come inside a little bit, but it was mainly wide left on the touchline, taking on his man, hitting the ball past him, and then making runs in behind, of course. And of course making angled runs into the back post, very much like what Somerville will look to do on the right-hand side. But more or less, the wingers were trying to make their runs in behind the defense, stretching that defense, creating space for the likes of Ruta and Gelhardt, or in this case it's going to be Bamford, to try and work with, of course. So it does add a little bit more of flair to the game. Of course, you do want your wingers to be, the most skillful players on your team in this situation. And I quite like that. I quite like what I saw from Leeds United going forward, to be fair. I thought their attacking outlet was fantastic. And speaking of attacking outlet, we've got the main man up front, Patrick Bamford. Now, obviously, this is the Gelhardt role that I've given him. But I would imagine for Patrick Bamford, it would be more of a balanced set of supporting runs. And then, of course, he will look to try and be the target man back to goal, hold the defenders off and ping balls in and around him. But for the Gelhardt role that I did see, which I've given Bamford here, he was more or less drifting wide, so he wasn't just the central focal point of the offense going forward. So he was more or less in and around the likes of Ruta, whereas Ruta was more of the focal point going, straight forward. And then of course the mixed run. So there were times where I saw Gelhardt drop incredibly deep to collect the ball, link up with the midfield, of course, and then of course link up with Ruta and make little 1-2 passes in and around the defense. And I thought that was really, really clever from Farke, because obviously West Brom, they were quite happy to sit deep and just counter-attack. So it was a nice little spanner to throw into the works to try and get the defense to come out a bit more and try and attack the dropping off striker. Of course, normal interceptions were on, and then of course come back on defense. Like I say, you want to try and replicate and recreate the ability of your striker to drop extra deep, just to try and pull and maybe stretch that defense just a little bit more. But like I say, if it is Bamford, what I would go for Bamford would be balanced, target man, and of course stay forward. So you would want him to be the very focal point, the furthest man forward, hit the ball into him with, if you're Ruta, 1-2 pass around the corner, you're in on goal potentially. So yes, that is my set of instructions that I have gone with for the likes of Leeds United under Daniel Farke. Please guys, if you can, it's free of course. I love it. Somebody once, they were like, I don't want to subscribe. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, I don't want to pay. And I was like, it's for free. So while I'm on it, it's for free. Hit the subscribe button. It's the red button at the bottom. That would be great if you could, obviously. If you don't like my videos, don't subscribe. Hit the thumbs down button. It you know what? It is what it is. But more importantly, if you do like my videos, I want you to hit that big red button. I mean, honestly, obviously, you don't have to, but please, I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers.